Right, so we're going to be doing a skill capped review. Let's get into it. This is a requested video. It's going to be the only wave control guide you'll ever need for League of Legends Season 11, and we're going to be the judge of that. So let's take a look. All right.
This year's collaborations with Riot Games for Latin America.
Nice.
If you want to catch these guides in Spanish, then be sure to immediately look for trading tips so that they can kill their opponents to win the matchup.
Take a look.
That's definitely useful, but the best players in the world know that the most consistent way to crush your opponents is to manipulate minion waves so that all situations go in their favor. In this guide, we'll be going over the 3 different types of wave manipulation tactics that you need to know. By the end of the video, you'll know exactly how to execute them, when to use them, but most importantly, when not to use these wave tactics as well. Everyone wants to know the...
So when I'm doing these reviews, I'm not just looking at the information, I'm also looking at how the information is being translated to somebody who may not understand the game. So when I'm watching these videos, usually I'm putting myself into the perspective of a player who's absolutely, like, I'm gold, silver, platinum, and I just want to learn the game. And whatever this guy says should help me, right? And then there's the coaching side of me where then I would break down the actual, like, what is happening, you know?
best way of crushing their opponents every single game.
And also, this is LAN pro play, I think. This is, yeah, this is like some pro play. I don't know.
We'll definitely be covering those kinds of...
It's like, yeah, I don't know.
But what the best players in the world focus on more often is minimizing their mistakes.
I mean, judging by the left side's team draft, it's probably not that. Yeah.
Wave tactics can oftentimes come with big drawbacks. So it's very important that you know them ahead of
time. The blue team drafted so poorly, by the way, or I don't know. Anyways, whatever.
That way, things
not the
are
point of the video.
less likely to go wrong in your games. Okay, so the 3 wave manipulation tactics that you need to know are fast pushing, freezing, and slow pushing. Now, if we were to rank the order on how effective each of these are, fast pushing is the weakest, freezing is the second strongest, and slow pushing is more often than not the strongest wave tactic you can execute.
So the problem I have with this statement is that's like saying that, okay, well, we have 3 types of fruits. We have mangoes, we have apples, and we have oranges. Mangoes are the best, apples are the second best, and oranges are always the third. That doesn't make any sense, because I could be someone who's allergic to fucking mangoes, or I could be someone who doesn't like the taste of apples, and I love, what was the first one I mentioned? Oranges, right? Okay, I don't know where I'm going with this analogy. The point is, you can't rank the way you manipulate the wave, right? Because these are just things you do with the wave whenever it is the right time to do that. You can't rank fast pushing is always going to be better than slow. Because if I'm a new player, right, I'm thinking now, okay, fast pushing is better than slow pushing and freezing is better than slow pushing. But that doesn't make any sense, because logically it shouldn't make any... You can't rank these things. There's no rank to it. You know what I mean? You just do whatever is best in the situation. You have to learn how to play the lane out and then do these 3 maneuvers, I guess you can call it, relative to the state of the game, the state of the lane, and all the other variables. That's how you do them. You don't rank them. You don't say that it's stronger or weaker. There is no... You know what I mean?
So, let's break down their strengths and weaknesses, starting with fast pushing. This tactic is pretty self-explanatory. In order to execute it, all you have to do is push the wave as quickly as possible. That's it. There are 2 cases in which you'll want...
For the sake of education, fast pushing could also be called crashing. So, like, when I say in my videos, crash the wave, it's basically like, you know, kill the minions.
to fast push the wave. The first case is when you want the wave at your opponent's tower for absolutely any reason. For example, the enemy talon roaming towards bot warrants a fast push, so you can try to deny some farm.
That's correct, yeah.
Before he gets back to lane, and to also try and score a turret plate while his tower is undefended. The other major reason that you'd want to fast push is to get yourself out of lane as quickly as possible.
True.
By pushing the enemy wave into the tower, you no longer have any reason to be in lane. This is most useful for when you suspect that you're in danger. For example, your team just got a completely uncontested dragon on the bottom side of the map. If you see that, as a top laner, you should probably wonder about the possibility that the enemy team was trying to make a play on you, which is why they weren't in position to contest dragon. Therefore, you'd likely want to fast push the wave to get
That doesn't make any sense. Not because it's like nothing is really incorrect. It's just it literally doesn't make sense to be correct. That sounds weird. Okay, so the point is, if your team is doing dragon and the enemy doesn't contest, it could be for a number of reasons. Not all the time are they just looking for a cross map play. Not all the time is your lane state in a position where you have to crash the wave. Sometimes if you have a freeze or if you have a pretty good lane state, a cross map play is not that possible for the opponent. In fact, crashing the wave, if your lane state is actually quite good, knowing that enemy jungle can probably come up is actually worse for your lane. So what's happening here is the variables don't really make sense, and what this guy is saying is he's putting a random example, and then he's justifying a random example with a fast push. But a better example would be, well, if your lane is already pushing and the next wave will end up locking, it's better to crash the wave into the tower so the next wave doesn't lock. That's a great example for a fast push. But this doesn't make any sense, and this doesn't actually help anyone. In fact, something like this explanation actually just confuses newer players more and more.
Get out of lane as quickly as you can in order to avoid the potential gank coming your way. Okay, so you quickly shove the wave into the enemy's tower. What could be so bad about doing that? Well, you try and think about it. What downsides can you think of that might make fast pushing not ideal to do all the time? Well, its greatest strength happens to...
Well, you wouldn't do it all the time because you're giving the opponent a wave. I mean, there's no other answer to that, right?
also be its greatest flaw. By fast pushing a wave, you're generally only getting one minion wave of pressure. That doesn't give you much time to do anything.
Anivia has to fast push here. It's Anivia at level 7. She's just going to crash the wave and get a ward down. There's nothing that Anivia needs to do. Maybe she can go for blue buff. I don't know who the enemy laner is. I don't know where he is. I don't know what's happening on the other side, but here you have to fast push, right? This is fine.
As an example, Anivia this game got to fast push a single wave uncontested into the enemy Zed's tower. She left lane for a moment, but quickly realized that the next wave was coming in soon. She almost had zero time to do anything before she had to be back in lane to catch the next wave. Okay, so...
Are they justifying that as a mistake?
If the first flaw is that you don't have much time to do anything, then the second flaw is that you're just giving your opponent free farm this way.
Okay, but what else is Anivia supposed to do here? It's Anivia, dude. It's actually better to crash the wave here than to slow push the wave. You have to crash the wave here. What else is she going to do with the wave? You want to crash the wave and then go to blue buff. I mean, maybe our friend here, Shaco, can give us the blue. Alternatively, we just get a ward down. You know, everyone's happy. Anivia has no other reason not to do this. So to justify this as a mistake is very contradictory to, well, common sense for one, but also other educational guides that would say that you should just push the wave here. There's nothing else to do.
In a wave, you're generally only getting one minion wave of pressure. That doesn't give you much time to do anything. As an example,
one minion wave of pressure. That's not pressure. You're just crashing the wave and getting a ward down. I'm confused. What is your definition of pressure?
Push a single wave uncontested into the enemy's tower. She left lane for a moment, but quickly realized that the next wave was coming in soon. She almost had zero time to do anything before she had to be back in lane to catch the next wave. Okay, so if the first flaw is that you don't have much time to do anything, then the second flaw is that you're just giving your opponent free...
Well, you can slow push it, but you have to have reason for slow pushing it as well, right? But there's nothing wrong with just crashing it. Just reset it.
Farm this way. Imagine a Renekton versus Nasus lane. If all Renekton did was fast push waves, he'd have no time to impact the rest of the map.
So someone says, someone's saying in chat that because then maybe wave would reset the fast crash while slow one makes it come to you. Well, yeah, but that also depends on the proximity of the next wave, right? Now, sure, I don't disagree with that, but none of this was addressed, right? So there's two ways we're looking at these situations, right? The first way is we're looking at the situation as a coach or someone analyzing the authenticity of the actual direction. And then there's the other side of me that is pretending to be like a platinum, gold, silver player, and then trying to see how this information is now delivered to me. Not only are we trying to analyze the concept of the video itself, but also how the information is being delivered and if it's being delivered properly. Nothing has really been mentioned when variables such as the next wave hasn't even been mentioned, right? So the delivery just doesn't make any sense. It's just a very, very strange delivery. And then to state that Anivia will push and then just get a ward down, and to say that that's not doing something is very weird to me as well now, because that's not that terrible. It's not. It's like, it's whatever. I mean, you can go blue too. It's okay.
Pressure. That doesn't give you much time to do anything. As an example, Anivia this game got to fast push a single wave uncontested into the enemy Zed's tower. She left lane for a moment, but quickly realized that the next wave was coming in
Well,
soon.
actually,
She almost
Anivia can't go anywhere in this lane. She can't go bot lane with the way Draven and Karma is playing, and she's actually misplaying. She should have just ended up maybe getting the blue buff. But if the Shaco isn't going to give her the blue or whatever, then the ward is fine. What Anivia doing here is okay. I mean, it's whatever.
had zero time to do anything before she had to be back in lane to catch the next wave. Okay, so if the first flaw is that you don't have much time to do anything, then the second flaw is that you're just giving your opponent free farm this way. Imagine a Renekton
But that's the thing, right? Zed can just wait under tower. He's gonna get the wave anyway.
versus Nasus lane. If all Renekton did was fast push waves, he'd have no time to impact the rest of the map with such small crashes.
That's not necessarily true either, because Renekton can roam on cannon minions, either to the enemy jungle, or he could end up roaming mid lane, or he could end up teleport. Well, maybe TPing's a little bit deep, but you get the idea, right? You can crash and still do other things, right? So now I understand where these guys are coming from. They're essentially saying that if you have a big wave and you crash it into the enemy, that you have more time. That's not entirely false. That's true, but you can't say that just crashing in the wave is also like useless. You can still do things by crashing in minion waves. Nasus has to farm under tower. You can either move in for a reset depending on the wave. You can move into the enemy jungle. You can move into mid lane. There's a lot of things you can do.
Not only that, but he's funneling farm into his opponent uncontested. Fast pushing waves is incredibly bad to do when your opponent outscales you.
You could also do this as if you're like a ranged top laner. You could harass him under tower.
You need to win the lane, and fast pushing doesn't help you do that most of the time.
And this is also not necessarily correct either, because if you crash the wave and then you end up bouncing it and you fast push it. So okay, if your lane state is not good, you can fast push it and then you can bounce it back, and then what ends up happening is the fast push that you originally did was actually helping you beat the Nasus, because what it leads to is a bounce back in the lane. And again, this is going back to the delivery aspect of the video, where it's like, sure, I'm a new player, but you have to realize that if you start giving blanket statements like this, I will literally take it literally. That's what people do. They just take it literally, and they don't actually... You can't say this to someone who doesn't understand the actual game, because they're not experienced in such. So it's a little bit weird.
Which brings us to our second wave tactic that you need to learn, freezing. Freezing is basically allowing your own wave to be at a disadvantage.
That's not even a freeze. But whatever.
So that the enemy wave overwhelms it. It's pretty easy to set up a freeze.
Okay, another issue is they don't actually give examples of like what they're talking about. The visuals are just completely off. That's not a freeze, first of all.
Disadvantage,
okay.
So that the enemy wave overwhelms it.
Talon is trolling.
It's pretty easy to set up a freeze.
That's not a freeze either. How is Annie at level 3 going to freeze against the Ryze with the cannon minion in the lane like that, when Ryze can just blow everything into the wave and Annie can't do anything? How's that a freeze? If you're going to show a freeze, first of all, it's actually probably better to show a freeze either in side lanes, because freezes in mid lane aren't really necessarily always freezes. They're very short freezes, and usually lane manipulation in mid lane is not with the intentions of necessarily freezing it, but for the opponent to look at the wave and either be forced to either take a reset or just leave the lane, or force the jungler into your lane to then assist with the crash, right? The freezes aren't that strong. So if you are going to show a new player on how to freeze, go show them in top lane, go show them in mid lane. or bot lane here, right? And then in mid lane, it's a little bit harder to freeze because the lane is shorter and the minions and the champions usually have more wave clear. But you can't show this example. Annie can't freeze this lane.
Anytime that your own minion wave is at a disadvantage, all you have to do is last hit minions.
Annie can't last hit the minions here. Annie needs to keep autoing the minions here. There's no reason to last it here. It doesn't do anything for her. So that's just actually incorrect as well. You have to realize that the visuals are very important when you're illustrating a concept to someone who's just very new and not as receptive to the game yet. I'm not saying that the viewers are bad players at all. They have a lot of potential, but they're not experienced with the game, and you can't show stuff like this without actually putting context in it. You can't even freeze this. You're talking about freezing.
That way, you're not disrupting the lead the enemy minions have over yours. You can also consistently set up your own minions to be at a disadvantage by using what is known as a bounce back crash. Whenever you crash a wave into the enemy's tower, there are two possibilities.
Just call it a bounce back. Just crash the wave so it bounces back. You don't have to like call it a bounce back crash. That's really weird. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just not my terminology, but I have never heard anyone say that. But I mean, I don't know.
That can occur. One, the wave is cleared before their next incoming wave arrives.
That's a reset.
What this will do is reset the lane completely into a neutral position. The other possibility is what you want to go for, if you're looking to achieve a freeze. Remember that the incoming wave on both sides are mirrored. You want to crash your wave at the enemy's...
Yeah, see, as you can see on the mini and on the map here, this is actually a bounce back, crash, lane swap, rift herald, turbo freeze. Fucking, you know, I don't even know. This is, keep the terminology consistent, you know?
Tower when you're sure
it's a turbo shove.
Arrive before yours is fully clear. Basically, you just want the enemy wave to stall here a bit.
Okay, first of all, what the guy is saying is not theoretically wrong. Yes, if the minion waves end up aligning here, the wave will return into the Annie here. But what Annie is doing here is really, really weird.
Before yours is fully clear. Basically, you just want the enemy wave to stall.
Is she tabbed out? What are you doing?
Here a bit, killing the minions at their tower. Basically, you just want the enemy wave to stall here a bit.
You can't stall the wave. If you stall the wave, Ryze will jump you. Well, then again, you have your Annie at level 8. But regardless, stalling the wave doesn't do anything. The wave's still coming into you. You can just kill the minions. It's cool. Everything is fine. The wave is coming into you. Turbo shove the wave into a bounce back crash, then a gigapull. Alright. We said we wouldn't flame, chat. Come on. No, but seriously though, like, you don't have to do whatever the hell Annie's doing here. I don't know what she's intending on doing here, but the wave is just coming back into Annie. She can just farm it. Like, case closed.
Killing the minions at their tower. After your wave dies at tower, the waves will crash.
This is correct. This is correct.
Next is based on the even minion rule. What this means is that whenever there is an even creep wave, then whichever side of the map it is on will push to the opposite side.
That's correct, and that's how you want to start explaining things to people. That's very good, right? What they just said. Now, of course, the video is saying some really ridiculous things. There's also accuracy within these videos. That's good.
So, in this case, in the long run, the wave pushed toward the blue side of the map, since it was initially closer to the red side's tower. This is the most consistent way that you can force a freeze whenever you want.
We have no such restrictions.
The minion rule does add a layer of complexity to maintaining a freeze. You'll soon come to realize that even though your minion wave is at a disadvantage compared to your opponent's wave, it won't actually freeze based on what part of the lane that it's in. This is because freezes generally occur
it's not a freeze.
on your side of the lane, which means that your reinforcing wave will arrive first. The added minions will overcome any initial disadvantage your wave may have been under. This is a very useful visual to help you maintain your freezes. When your waves are in the green area, you will only need to have your wave be at a 1 minion disadvantage.
Yeah, it's not frozen
when
there.
the waves are fighting in the yellow area, your wave should be at a 2 to 3 minion disadvantage, otherwise the even minion rule will break the freeze. And in the red area, your wave should be at least at a 3 to 4 minion disadvantage.
See, I don't really have an opinion on this because I get that something like this could probably help a new player, but everyone in higher MMR, everyone in like mid elo, like anyone above diamond, like hell even probably in platinum, people don't count the minions. in game. This isn't useful. I agree. This isn't actually useful. People don't count the minions in game because you're playing the video game. You don't got time to do math, right? You don't have time to count the way people in higher MMR or not even higher elo. The way you should do it is you need to start feeling it, right? You need to start feeling the game, or like you essentially feel the wave larger than yours. And you generally are able to tell, like for example, okay, here, like this is how you should do it. Usually, now you're not going to count, obviously, right? Where's Epic here? But I'm not going to count, right? So I'm just going to draw like random, like, just marks on the screen, right? And then I'm going to draw a bunch of blue marks. Now, I'm not going to count these, but it doesn't take a genius to understand or be able to essentially dissect the fact that there are more red or pink marks than there are blue. The wave is coming in. Vice versa, right? And so I don't really have too much of an opinion on this. It's a little bit weird. I don't think it's that helpful for people, but I think that it's just easier to feel the wave just based on logic. But anyways, whatever. I'm not going to dig too much into this because, I mean, yeah, it's whatever. Let's just keep going. See what else they have to say here.
That may seem overly complicated, but
you gain this with experience.
Once you understand it and start applying it in your games, initiating and maintaining a freeze will become second nature to you. And as a quick reminder, if you want to improve fast and get the rank you've always wanted, then check out our hyper improvement system at skillcap.com.
Take notes, guys.
We have professional courses by top players, Smurf commentaries where a challenger player walks you through how to climb out of every rank from Iron to Diamond, and we upload
Iron to Diamond. You can do whatever the hell you want and get from Iron to you can do very basic things and get from Iron to Diamond. Why isn't the challenger teaching you why isn't the challenger player able to teach you what to do in Diamond 1 to master? Why doesn't the challenger player tell you what to do in Challenger? Why doesn't he break down the game in Challenger? Right? I think that would be more helpful. Now, of course, you can disagree. You can be like, oh, but this is more geared towards lower MMR, whatever. Yeah, okay, sure. That is a pretty valid point. So sure, yeah.
Tons of new exclusive
But
guides.
to me, this is a very con artistry kind of way to pull in viewers. Because now, if I'm a bronze, silver, gold player, if I'm a very inexperienced player, to me, skill cap looks like fucking my savior, doesn't it? It looks amazing. They have great visuals. They have this guy who sounds super, super confident, even though he has no idea what he's talking about to a degree. And then, there's all this stuff that looks very appealing. So they're going to pull in clients. It's a very good business model, but there's an issue when players who are able to break down the game to a certain degree. Now, I'm not saying that I can just break down the game to a insanely, I make mistakes as well, right? Obviously. But this is so alarming that there are so many. There's literally only 10% of the video is accurate. That's a problem. When a 16-minute video is being played and only 10% or less is actually accurate, that is a red flag. Now, of course, if maybe I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 or 15% of the video isn't as accurate, and perhaps it doesn't actually really even matter if it's not accurate, because sometimes it doesn't even matter if it's accurate or not, because the lower MMR player is still going to learn from it. But when you start fundamentally telling people what to do and that's just literally wrong, when you literally fundamentally start misguiding people, that's when the video becomes like a red flag.
Adds to our website each week.
You could watch my videos. I can coach challenger players. You could be a plat player, a diamond player, a gold player, and I could say something incorrect in the coaching session, but that will still help you as a player because it's getting you to think about certain things that I'm saying. Right? But I don't fundamentally make errors like this. That's where the red flag will end up,
In fact, we're so confident you'll improve using our system that if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using skill capped, you can claim a full refund, so there's no risk. What are you waiting for? Check out skill capped.
Also, I'm not gonna start rumors, but I have had people tell me that the refund system doesn't actually it doesn't actually work.
And get the rank you've always
Which
wanted.
it makes sense because the company is losing money.
What's next, though, is understanding when you should actually attempt to freeze. So before starting a freeze, you should always
The refund
ask
thing is
yourself,
just another way to pull in more like viewers, and that's to show like, oh, you will climb with your money back. But this is like, you get to it and then you don't actually have your money back. Like I've heard stories. It's not good. Anyways, whatever. Moving forward.
actually attempt to freeze. So before starting a freeze, you should always ask yourself, is there anywhere else I need to be on the map?
No, you're Gwen. You've already won the game.
By freezing waves, you're committing to sitting in a lane for a very long time. As an example, let's say you're a top laner with half health and mana and 2,000 gold in your inventory. That is very likely not a time that you should be freezing, as you should definitely be looking to visit the shop.
Again, fundamentally saying things that are misguiding people. This is a fundamental issue. What he's just saying is wrong. When you have a freeze, and no one can break the freeze, that is a great time to recall. Especially if you have 2k gold on you. That's a great time to reset. You can come back, you can teleport back because maybe you're playing top lane, and you're maintaining the freeze. Likewise, you can hold the freeze, reset, come back, and then you end up retaining the freeze if no one breaks it. Right? Likewise, if you end up crashing this wave, for example, you may not have enough time to crash the next wave, and then you'll be back, and then the other guy's gonna have tempo advantage on you. That's like a little more advanced, and that requires a little bit more foresight about the waves, which I don't expect most players to be able to just do. But what ends up happening then is you're not on a recall because you chose to crash the wave for whatever reason, right? Because Skill-Capped had told you don't recall on a freeze, but that's literally incorrect. You know what I mean? It's very, very strange. Again, it's these types of videos that I understand if you're saying a few things incorrect, and I do that too sometimes, and everyone does that here and there, but man, this is like baseline issues with the game.
In the near future. Or another example, let's say the dragon is up. As the ADC, you probably shouldn't be freezing. By doing so, you're hindering your ability to rotate to the objective if the enemy team begins to threaten it.
That's also false, because you can still move if you have a freeze. Just because you have a freeze in this location, it's not... You can still move. The freeze is still going to be there because there's no one to break the freeze. The only difference is now the opponent is able to move as well, because they're frozen bot lane. They don't want to be there anyway, unless they crash it, right? It's actually beneficial to move. Yes, you actually want to move here, and you retain the freeze. So if the fight goes even, or if the fight goes nil, nothing's gonna happen. Absolutely nothing will happen. You're still winning. But people have this weird misconception that you can never move if you have a freeze. That's not true. A freeze doesn't literally mean that you're frozen. You're not frozen in a freeze. Just the minion wave is frozen. You can still move around, man. Like, Jesus. It's just this weird misconception. Oh, I have a freeze. I can't move. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, you can actually move. Your freeze is still going to be there. So it's okay. Right? The freeze enables you. It doesn't restrict you. Exactly. So again, fundamentally, there's baseline issues with the video and the content being delivered, right?
If you've got nowhere to be, though, then there will be two situations that you'll want to freeze a wave for. Number one, if you, for whatever reason, want the wave closer to your side of the lane. More often than not, this decision revolves around junglers. Let's say that your jungler is on the bottom side of the map, and you suspect the enemy jungler is topside.
Sure.
Then you may want to be freezing. That way it's much harder to gank you, and you can remain safe while your team gets something done on the bot side. The opposite is just as...
Can we discuss the fact that you can't always actually freeze? Sometimes you have the inability to freeze. And if you end up freezing, what's actually happening here? Now, this is going to get a little technical. But what's going to happen here is you're actually letting the wave build up for Urgot here, allowing Nidalee to actually gank you easier. In this case, it's actually better to let the wave crash, because then the tower can, depending on where Nidalee is, right? If Nidalee is far away and you're about to get dove a little bit later, you're going to have to have the wave crash instead of freezing. Freezing actually allows the wave to build, and then Urgot can crash it, and then you die. They don't discuss this, but this is exactly the problem, right? Don't discuss this stuff originally if there's option for it not to work. It's just really weird. And then if you're trying to freeze the wave, yeah, maybe the trade, like, you know what? It's really weird. It's really strange.
Let's say that your jungler is on the bottom side of the map, and you suspect the enemy jungler...
Like, I'm just saying this is a possibility that could happen in the game, and this isn't addressed.
...top side. Then you may want to be freezing. That way it's much harder to...
This is kind of like the thing with Sanchovies and me, right? Where Sanchovies ended up watching one of my videos, and he said, well, you should dive Camille here, or you should dive the Nasus here. I think it was a Nasus-Camille matchup, if my memory serves me right. And I said that, yeah, you could dive him, but you could also cheat or recall here. And because Nasus wasn't already being traded on properly as Camille, the dive isn't as possible. But had you played better, yeah, you could dive. But at this point, in this freeze frame, because Nasus is X amount of HP, and you can't really dive him, it's best to cheat or recall. Stuff like this doesn't actually, like, stuff like this is very, like, staple, you know?
...to gank you, and you can remain safe while your team gets something.
It's very specific to the point.
Side. The opposite is just as good a reason to do it as well. If you think that the enemy jungler is on the other side of the map and yours is close to your lane, then initiating a freeze could be a great way to set up a gank onto your opponents. The second and main reason that you...
That's true. Yeah, that I do think that's pretty accurate. If your jungler is on your side of the map, yeah, you freezing the lane is quite nice, because then the opponent can't, you know, do anything. So yeah, that's accurate. That's fine.
Freeze could be a great way to set up a gank onto your opponents. The second and main reason that you want to freeze a wave is when you are comfortably stronger than your opponent and you want to deny...
The hell is Urgot? No, what is... They're not even playing the lane properly.
...them farm. Sometimes pushing waves isn't the best way to get leads. If there's nothing else that you can do on the map...
Why would you not push into this lane? It's a Renekton into Garen. Also, can we... I don't even want to discuss the fact that how the lane is actually being played by both of them. It's really poor. This guy's literally moving so slow. I'm going to fall into a coma. But that's not the point. That doesn't make any sense.
Then the best thing for you to do to snowball your lead...
It's it's like a 1v1.
...your opponent. Normally the player...
Renekton's level 2, Garen's level 3 with a giant wave. Renekton's auto-attacking, Garen doesn't do shit. It's wow, it's something.
With more minions wins.
Again, they're using a very unrealistic example to then essentially gear towards whatever skewed type of I don't know, example they want. They literally are manipulating the game so that it can meet whatever philosophy they have. But that's not realistic, because the game is not just gonna play like that. It doesn't play under your fantasy, right? The game is the game. And for you to take clips and certain whatever to then just fit your concept, or your skewed concept in this case, it's not realistic, because in realistically this should never be happening.
Trades. That's because fighting in a minion wave will draw aggro, and during the early stages of the game, minions do a ton of damage. Thus, you usually can't zone your opponents.
What is... Wow. These guys are really, yeah, your narrative, essentially. Yeah, I don't know what that trade was, but I'm not gonna dive into that. Wow, that was... Wow, this guy's... Yeah, I don't know.
Have a minion deficit. But if you have a sure lead, you may be able...
Oh, look at that. Now he's playing like a human. See, again, now that they're saying, oh, you have a lead, now Renekton starts playing like he has a keyboard and a mouse. Like, do you see how weird that is?
Break that rule.
None of these examples are even genuine. I get that's not the point of the video, but the examples, the concepts that they're talking about are literally inaccurate of the examples that are visually being shown.
The most brutal thing that you can do to your opponent is to freeze and deny them the ability to walk up and farm.
That guy is taking so long to kill Garen.
Depending on how far ahead you are, you can potentially deny them a huge amount of gold. Or if you're incredibly ahead, you can even...
Wait, why doesn't he flash W... What? Just kill him.
Potentially deny them a huge amount of gold. Or if you're...
Wait, Garen's dead here. Garen's just dead here. He just gets comboed down, I'm pretty sure.
Incredibly ahead, you can even go as...
Yeah, he doesn't even have to flash, I agree. Literally, he's dead. You could just eat, yeah, he's literally dead.
Denying your opponent experience entirely. Because your wave is at a disadvantage, the wave will never push toward your opponent.
That's not true. You can't say it'll never push because all freezes eventually turn into slow pushes.
If you maintain it properly, that is. Which
Oh,
means
okay. So he does actually. My bad. My mistake. I didn't let him finish. That's true.
you can technically zone someone from gold and experience indefinitely. The only way your opponent can break out of this situation would be to call their jungler to come and help them break the freeze with the numbers advantage against you. But even if they do that, you've still earned a massive lead over them. Number one, they'd be sharing gold and experience as they break the freeze, and number two, you'd be giving your teammates critical information as to where the enemy jungler is. Freezing is absolutely brutal when you can pull it off. In fact,
You can kill Garen. What the fuck? Okay, whatever. I'm gonna stop looking at this rant and play. Let's just keep going.
should be the strongest wave tactic in the game. In theory, with a proper freeze, there should be nothing that your opponent can do to stop you. Unfortunately, freezing does come with some pretty hefty downsides, which prevent it from
I don't even think you have to flash there. I think you keep chasing if you have good move speed. Maybe.
being as strong as it should
It doesn't
be.
even matter. It doesn't
The
even
biggest
matter.
one being that your opponent is completely
No, you do have to flash there, actually.
prevent it from being
I mean, you
as
should have
strong
killed him a lot sooner, but that's not the point.
The biggest one being that your opponent is completely
You
free
shouldn't have to
from
flash in that
lane.
lane.
Yes, they may not be able to walk up to the wave and last hit minions, but that means that they can
Wow.
roam around the map since you're not pushing waves into their tower. Their ability to leave lane for free isn't the problem,
I gotta
though,
stop
it's really
criticizing
your
the actual
teammates.
game.
Think about things from your ally's perspective. Let's say you're a Zed versus a Talon in mid lane.
Okay.
That's a pretty fun matchup, and both players are looking to fight and outplay each other to score a kill. Just as you're hitting 6 and the lane is becoming even more...
Someone said in chat, it's a guide for wave management, not matchup. Wave management can only be relative to the matchup. If you don't have matchup, if you don't know the matchup, you can't talk about wave management. Unless you're talking about basic wave management. But that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about, they're dealing into like crashes, they're digging into like slow pushes and all this other stuff. That does depend on wave management, or a matchup.
Interesting, you notice your bot lane is freezing. If Zed is smart, he will just play safe at his tower. His bot lane is getting ahead. As long as he doesn't lose, the game should be won because of how many resources his own bot lane is denying. But that's not why people queue up to play League of Legends. That Zed wants to have fun, and he wants to be the carry. He wants to be the one with 12 kills who everyone honors at the end of the game. So he'll go in,
Sounds like
he'll
ego.
die to the roam, and then he'll blame his bot lane for freezing. So you have to really think about whether the freeze is worth it, but
What?
initiating one. End of the fun.
Wait, what? So are you telling me not to freeze?
But that's not why people queue up to play League of Legends.
What is this guy even talking about? Hold on. I need to rerun this. This is
That Zed wants to have fun, and he wants to be the carry. He wants to be the one with 12 kills who everyone honors at the end of the game. So he'll go in, he'll die to the roam, and then he'll blame his bot lane for freezing. So you have to really think about whether the freeze is worth it before initiating.
the freeze is still worth it. The freeze is still worth it. Is he implying that the freeze was bad? Or is he implying that the Zed is bad? The Zed is bad, obviously, for dying, right? But what's the point? I'm so confused as to what is the point of the video, or what is the point of the concept being explained? He's implying that Zed is inting, I hope. So okay, hold on. To me, this guy sounds like he's telling me, or the viewer, or you guys, that freezing is bad. He's explaining why freezing is bad in some cases, and he uses Zed randomly dying to Talon mid as an example? What? That's like probably the worst thing I've seen so far in this video. Okay, anyways, let's just keep going. Wow. I feel like closing this video. I really feel like closing this video right now. This is one of the worst videos I have ever seen. And I know I'm not trying to flame, but my god, this is insane. I mean, I don't know. Let's keep playing, I guess.
But that's not why people queue up to play League of
6 minutes
Legends.
left.
That Zed wants to have fun, and he wants to be the carry. He wants to be the one with 12 kills who everyone honors at the end of the game.
It's like I'm in the middle of a theater. It's really crowded, and I'm in the middle of a really bad movie, and I can't really get out, you know?
So he'll go in,
It's
he'll
flaming.
die to the roam, and then he'll blame his bot lane for freezing. So you have to really think about whether the freeze is worth it before initiating
The
one.
freeze is still worth it. You should address that.
Consider how well your lane opponent can roam around the map. If you deem them to not be a threat, then it's totally okay to freeze. But if they have even the slightest kill pressure on your teammates, then a freeze might be too risky to implement.
You can just ping them back. Pings exist. People can back off. I don't know.
Since your allies will likely die to their roams. Here's a decent guideline.
So what you're telling me is if I'm frozen on, I can pretend to roam and the enemy will always push it back. Is that what's happening? No, that's not how it works.
For when we'd advise you to stop freezing in a game. For bot laners, stop freezing when your lane opponents are both level 6. A freeze is not worth the risk of 2 champions with 2 ultimates roaming around the map and killing your team.
I thought it couldn't get any worse. If you don't freeze here, Varus and Alistar will kill you. Oh my god, oh my god. I said I wouldn't flame, but the amount of brain cells I am losing right now is probably the amount of brain activity that is deteriorating right now is probably enough for me to be pronounced legally dead in a hospital. Like, this shit is so bad that I can't believe this is even allowed. This is borderline delusion. This is borderline delusion. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Maybe this guy. Hold on, I gotta.
A game. For bot laners, stop freezing when your lane opponents are both level 6. A freeze is not worth the risk of 2 champions with 2 ultimates roaming around the
So then dying to them is?
map and killing your team. For mid, stop freezing waves at around level 7. At that point, most mid laners have long-range, reliable wave clear anyway. It's almost
okay, but you can still freeze. That's not entirely true either. That's accurate to a degree, but it's not entirely true either. You know what I mean? The bot lane thing was just completely at a different.
After level 7 anyway. Not only that, but
they are challenger, yes.
With their ultimate and quick access to the entire map is too risky to be left alone roaming. As for top laners,
you can't say that your guides were essentially developed with high-level players or pro players, because no pro player or any high-level player that I've talked to would ever agree with this shit.
You can probably freeze waves all the way up until level 9 or 10. Top is so isolated from the rest of the map that it's generally not that scary to allow your lane opponents to roam. Of course, these are just general.
Why do people assume top is isolated? Rift Herald is a thing. Baron is a thing. Shelly the second one isn't as, scary, but I don't know why people think top is so isolated. Like, it is, like, I don't know, man. It's just a weird mentality. I don't want to go into that. Whatever. Let's just keep watching.
It's on you to adapt to your specific game that you're in. For example, if you're playing against a Jinx and the Yuumi bot lane, then it's totally fine to freeze past level 6. They're not going to have effective roams anyway, so who cares if they leave lane? Or in top, if you're
Jinx and Yuumi can't have effective roams? Yes, they can. They can still move. Jinx and Yuumi can't. You can't freeze against Jinx and Yuumi. Oh my god. How are you gonna freeze as Draven against Jinx Yuumi with the Nautilus? At level 7. How are you gonna freeze it? Won't they just wave clear it? Isn't that possible? I don't know.
Going to have effective roams anyway, so who cares if they leave lane?
Just all in, yeah,
or
true.
In top,
but,
if you're against a Quinn, then you may just want to never freeze a wave.
Why even freeze? Yeah, just kill them at that point, exactly.
Again, after she gets level 6.
You can't freeze against Quinn anyway. You can't even freeze against Quinn at pre-8. How will you freeze after 8?
When she's free to do what she wants, Quinn will roam around the map, killing your whole team, regardless of how much you ping her, so you really want to be pressuring her tower as much as you can and trying to force her to stay in lane.
It's a Quinn.
Alright, onto our final and strongest wave tactic, slow push.
The Darius must be Bwipo if he's going to freeze against that Quinn. Like, there's no way. Exactly, the Darius must be, like, super fed. I don't know.
This is by far the most utilized wave tactic by high elo players, as
Okay.
they all understand how powerful it is. All it is pushing the minion wave slowly. Then, when it's big enough, you crash it. Your end goal is just to create as big of a crash as possible at your opponent's tower.
No, it's not. Because if your end goal was to create a crash big enough as possible, then you would actually slow push this wave so that the next wave may also end up locking. But that's not going to happen. Because, again, inaccuracy. The purpose of crashing this wave is to not play in this location. It's to play over here. It's to make sure the lane resets. You're not trying to build a giant wave here. You're just trying to get the fucking wave into the tower so then you can not die. Right? Sure, maybe in some cases you can build a wave and you can dive that. Sure, that's also a purpose. But you can't say that because now you're under the assumption that, for all we know, maybe these guys turbo slow push it and then this wave locks too. Maybe this wave is closer, you know? So, the reasoning doesn't make any sense.
And goal is just to create as big of a crash as possible at your opponent's tower. The advantages of a slow push are really easy to understand. Slow pushing is literally just fast pushing, but better. The problem we had with
Oranges are not apples because oranges are oranges and they're not apples. Like, what the fuck am I listening to? I don't...
fast pushing was that a single wave at the enemy tower didn't give you much time to do anything. Slow pushing fixes that. By having a big wave at your opponent's tower, you're going to have a lot more time to do things. This can be whatever you want. For example, one of the most common uses of slow pushing is to just recall after the crash. Because it takes your opponent so long to clear the wave, you're able to get back in time before...
Yeah, this can't possibly make any sense to lower tier players. Exactly. This doesn't make sense to me. This doesn't make sense to mid MMR players. This doesn't make sense to low... This doesn't make sense at all.
Can crash the wave to your tower. Oh, and remember what we said about bounce backs after a crash? If the wave stalls at the tower after you crash a slow push, then you can force a freeze by coming back to lane with an item advantage. Scion doesn't want the wave frozen against him, so he tries to contest the Aurelion. Unfortunately for him, with her item advantage, she easily disposes
Is
of
Scion
him. This
drunk?
kill was scored not through mechanics, but from Aurelia's previous slow push into the threat of a freeze. This was a perfect example of how to use waves to crush your lane opponent. The other most devastating tactic off of a slow push
Scion didn't have to do that, by the way, but whatever.
is setting up a tower dive on your opponent, killing someone after crashing.
Scion doesn't want the wave to freeze, so he runs it down. God damn it.
Big wave into their tower is incredibly punishing. Number 1, you've scored a kill. Number 2, you're denying your opponent a ton of farm while they're respawning. And number 3, you have a massive wave to help you take turret plates to snowball even further ahead. Coordinating a slow push while the jungler is on your side of the map and pinging them to dive is one of the most abused hacks.
That's really good. This is really good. That's not really good. The video in itself is a complete tragedy. But the concept that they're explaining, a slow push, you can then crash the slow push and then dive on that slow push, that's theoretically right.
High elo wave tactics by far.
That's not a high elo wave tactic. That is common sense.
You can literally win the game instantly if you manage to pull it off. Sure, in lower elos, your junglers may not listen
They do this in Platinum and Gold, dude.
to your call, but it's still good to ask in case they do pay attention. But, as we said, you can do anything you want off of a slow push. You can roam to another lane, invade the enemy jungle, set up vision, etc. Anything you attempt to do is far more likely to work out. By crashing a decently sized wave at their tower, your opponent will be forced to stay there, giving you more time for your play to succeed. And that's why slow pushing is the strongest wave tactic of the three. You get great advantages with very little downside, and the one downside it does have is easy to play around. The only way a slow push could turn out poorly for you is if you mess up during it. It's very important to know that the only difference between a slow push and a freeze is who is in control of the wave. For example, in this case the TF has a slow push going for him, since he's even in health with Syndra and he has the wave advantage. But let's imagine that Syndra...
TF doesn't want to slow push the wave this deep. He wants to crash it. Why would TF slow push the wave here? Unless his jungler is right over here and he's coming, and then he wants to build the next wave and then crash it. But then, if that's the case, then TF should never be trading against Syndra in the first place.
Syndra randomly landed a crazy good trade onto the Twisted Fate.
Sure.
With him being at such low health and unable to contest the wave anymore, his slow push has just become Syndra's freeze.
Okay.
As we said earlier, freezes can be quite devastating, so this is a complete
If we're not discussing anything about the jungler, then TF shouldn't be slow pushing in the first place. He should be looking to crash the wave if he's this deep into the tower. This is where you crash the wave. You don't slow push it. It's a freeze because TF was slow pushing.
disaster for TF. So it's important to remember that the advantage of a slow push is all about that crash. You don't have to trade with your opponent.
Oh, he actually mentions it.
Crashing a big wave if you don't need to. It's more important to make sure that you actually crash the wave to ensure your advantage.
Okay, so he does actually mention it. Okay, well, thank the Lord.
To wrap things up, we want to leave you with a clear message.
Oh, there's more and more? Okay.
You don't always have to
Final nail in the coffin, boys. Let's do it.
use the most optimal wave strategy for every single scenario. It's impossible to
Every single scenario, there's a wave strategy? I want to know this. Hell, I'll start doing it. I'll see you guys in Challenger next week. Wait a minute. What is he going to say?
always have to use the most
I'm never going to be able to guess something like that because there is no such thing.
optimal wave strategy for every single scenario. It's impossible to always do the best play possible every single time. The most important thing to focus on
Wait, is he saying that there's
always
one wave technique that always works? What is this? Am I going to watch another one? No. My brain is not... I'm going to have to take a shower after this video.
use the most optimal wave strategy for every
I'm going to have to burn my clothes after this video. Hold on, I need to listen to this.
with
This
a
guy's
clear message.
gonna
You don't always
awaken
have to
me.
use the most optimal wave strategy for every single scenario. It's impossible to always do the best play possible every single time. The most important thing to focus on is making sure that you don't use these tactics at the wrong time or
Wait, I think I literally just
your opponent
misheard
while
him.
your advantage of a slow push is all about that. To wrap things up, we want to leave you with a clear message. You don't always have to use the most optimal wave strategy for every single scenario. It's impossible to always do the best play possible every single time. The most important thing to focus on is making sure that you don't use these tactics at the wrong time or mess
My brain is so deteriorated that I'm not even listening to him properly anymore. I literally misheard that. My mistake. Regardless, what he just said is also incorrect because, well, you didn't teach us much about wave management throughout the entire video. About 5% of the video was actually accurate, and now you're essentially telling us that, oh, but you can kind of use it all anytime. But what, like, I don't even know.
them up either. Fast pushing and giving a scaling opponent free farm, freezing versus a powerful roamer, or dying while you're slow pushing can all be game-losing mistakes. Hopefully by knowing them ahead of time, you're much less likely to commit those mistakes and make full use of the power of all three strategies. And with that, we'll end things here. Hope you enjoyed, thanks for watching, and we'll
Oh my god, I don't even know how to address it. I don't even know how to, like, conclude the video. It's just so diluted. Like, I don't even have a closing statement.
wave. You don't always have to use the most optimal wave strategy for every single scenario. It's impossible.
There is no optimal wave strategy. It is just doing something based on what you have. On the game state. It is to do something in the game based on the state of the game. You don't rank these as 1 to 3 or 3 to 1. You don't rank them. And for you then to say that you don't have to always use them.
To always do the best play possible every single time. Most important thing to focus on is making sure that you don't use these tactics at the wrong time or mess them up either. Fast pushing and giving a scaling opponent free farm, freezing versus a powerful roamer, or dying while you're slow pushing can
This is all like weird. It's just none of this has neither of these things have logic. I just don't have a closing statement on this video.
to commit those mistakes and make. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you on
This
Welcome to our
this video is probably the worst video I've ever seen from Skillcapped. I know that I'm doing a review on this, and I said I wouldn't be like super toxic or whatever, but this may just be the worst thing that I have ever watched.